Hello everybody. In this video I want to do an example comparing simple interest versus compound interest using Excel. And what we're going to do is we're going to come up with a scenario of investing $5,000 at 5%, and we're going to do two comparisons, one using simple interest and one using Excel or using compound interest over time. Say it's 40 years. That's why we're going to use Excel. And Excel is something that employers like people to see, so we're really trying to get some Excel examples in here and have you learn some of the basics of Excel. And if you don't have a copy of Excel, that's fine. You don't have to come on campus or anything. I sent out an email at the beginning of the semester, and I'll send it out again. It turns out if you're a student at Western Piedmont, which all of you are, you have access to the free, not only Excel, but the Microsoft Office suite. Again, I'll send out that email again with that. You just have to download it. So you all have access to Excel. Again, we'll have a couple assignments on Excel. I know the SalCal Val Lab has an Excel assignment on it. And also on your final exam, there may be an expectation that you can do something on Excel. And so let's look at the scenario again. We're talking about simple interest versus compound interest. And just to do simple interest first, remember simple interest, your interest is always based on what you start with, which in this case is the $5,000. So if I just do some scratch work here, $5,000 times 0.05, it's $250. So in this case, my simple interest is always $250. So every year, say year 0, I started with $5,000. Yep. Year 1, it's the $5,000 plus $250. Times 1. Year 2, it's going to be what you started with, $5,000, but we get another $250, so it'd be $250 times 2. You know, you just keep on adding $250 to it. Year 3, it's the $5,000 plus the $250 times 3. And we should probably actually be putting some values on this. Would make sense. So this year 0, of course, is 5,000. So if you do 5,000 plus 250, you get 5,250. Add another 250, you get 5,500. Add another 250, you get 5,750. And you can see the pattern here. You know, so it looks like I started with my initial amount, and it went up by the same amount each year. So since it goes up by 250 each year, it is definitely an example of linear growth. All right, so it's my initial value, what I started with, plus my growth rate of 250t, and that gives me my amount. And just to check this one right here, you know, if I plug in 3, so if so t equals 3. If I do 5,000, you know, plus 250 times 3. Well, it's the same thing I have written there. Obviously, I'm going to get the 5,750. So that is an example of linear growth. And remember that. So when we're programming Excel, we're going to remember how we did those calculations, because the trick with this Excel is, you know, we're going to do this for 40 years. Imagine going down for 40 years and doing that. Excel does it real quick. It's very quick. Okay. Now, compound interest, it's a little bit different. In fact, let's just go to another page to look at compound interest. So let me just go, P is 5,000, your rate is 0.05, and we're going to assume it's compounded annually. So compounded annually. So if we start with, just to give us an idea, so if we, of course, year 1 or year 0 is $5,000, just like it was before. Year 1, we start with $5,000, and we add, it's a growth, so remember back from our previous chapter, exponential growth. We're adding the 1 plus 0.05 to the first, because there's 1 unit. And if you run that through your calculator, pull my calculator up here. Okay, I think we got it going. 5,000 times 1.05. And we're going to get the same thing we did before, 5250. But the thing is now, for year 2, we take our old amount of 5250 and we do the 1 plus 0.05 again. All right, because it goes up by another 5%. And if we do that, and that is the difference between simple and compound interest. You know, the compound interest is not only based on what you put in, but any interest accumulated to that point. So if I take that old answer and I multiply by 1.05, I get a new value of $5,512.50. And if we just do one more year, say year 3, it's going to be my old amount times 1 plus 0.05 again. So we're taking the old amount multiplied by 1.05. So if I multiply this by 1.05, and there are a couple of different ways you can do these, and I'll show you both ways. I get the $5,788.13. Now, if we try to come up with an exponential model for this, because it looks like an exponential model, and it is, because you can see it's not going up by the same amount each time. Here from 5,000 to 5,250, it went up by 250, but here it looks like it went up 262.50. All right, and then even more than that, even though it's the same 5%, it's a different amount each time, so that's why it's exponential growth. So if you remember your exponential growth formula from the previous section, it's your initial amount times 1 plus your growth rate, 0.05 to the t. So it's your initial amount. To simplify this, 5,000 times 1.05 to the t. And just to verify this, because this one looks a little bit different from the last one, it's not as obvious. You know, if I verify this one, so year 3, so for t equals 3, if you do 5,000 times 1.05 cubed, and you write that in your calculator, or type it in, 5,000 times 1.05 cubed, notice we end up with the same amount. All right, so we're going to be thinking about these formulas when we start programming. Again, this is for the compound, when we start programming Excel. Compound interest, and again, if I go back, you know, here's my simple interest. And there's a couple of different ways you can type in each of them. Either way works. Now, I'll show you a couple of different ways on when we do it. All right, so let's just go ahead and pull up Excel. So let me, and I pulled up Excel. And again, just some of the basics with Excel is what we're going to be doing here. And I'm gonna anchor what we're going to do around what we said the principal was. And I believe that was $5,000. So I just picked this cell here, D3. It's cell D3. You know, you don't have to necessarily start there. And I'm right beside, I'm going to put $5,000. And then below it is your rate. And you see how this kind of went over that Excel? One thing you can do is come up here. Oh, hit enter first. Come up here and make that column a little bit wider. That works. And your interest rate was 0.05. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to anchor our simple interest calculations and our compound interest calculations around those two values right there. So if I want to go ahead and change and make it 6,000, all I got to do is change those two values I plugged in, and it'll change everything that we're going to do. That's what we mean by anchor. You'll hear me use that word a lot. Okay, let's go ahead and create a couple columns here. Let's have a column for the year. Let's have a column for the total amount earned simple interest. And so I'm just picking these out, and notice, wow, that is way bigger than that cell. So I can either do that, but that's pretty wide, or I'll show you another trick. Let me just cut that down a little bit. I'm clicking on that cell that you see how it's spilling off over to the next one. I can go up here and pick or hit wrap text. And notice it wraps it around and fits it all in there, which is nice. And then this is going to be the total amount here, earned compound interest. And we'll probably do for 40 years, and that's spilling over there too, so let me go hit this wrap text. Okay, so what we'll do is just go ahead and fill the year out. So I'm going to start the year 0. So I'm going to type in 0 right below that, in the first cell right below the year. Now, this is where Excel gets to be nice. The second year, I'm not going to type in 1, or the second box, which is going to be year 1. I'm going to hit equals the old year, so I'm going to click on it. And notice right here, when I click on it, notice there's an equals there that I put equals. Let me backspace. Look up here. Look right in that box. Let me get my marker out. Look right in this box right here, and you can see as I go through, let me get my non-drawing mode back here. There we go. Now I clicked on the box or the cell below years or B0, so this is cell B9. I'm going to hit enter, equals, and notice the equal comes up here, and then I'm going to click on the 0, the cell that has the 0, and I want one more than that. I'm going to type in +1 and hit enter. And that gives me my 1. And just to do it again, I'm going to hit, so this box obviously we want a 2, but the thing is we're going to program Excel, so we don't have to do this every time. We do it once or twice, and Excel figures it out. We just have to say, well, do it for 40 years. So I can hit equals. Every time you want a calculation done, you hit equals. So I hit equals. It's the old cell +1. And notice it's a 2. So now this is the beauty of Excel. I'm going to click on 2. I'm going to hold down, and I'm going to fill down until about 40. I'm guessing here. And once you do that, hit Control D, and notice that fills the boxes the whole way down. All right. And let me just repeat that for you. So what I did was I clicked on the 2. I'm holding it down, the button down, and I'm dragging down here as far as I want to go. I'm going to go down to 40 years. So if I don't quite get 40, we can go a little bit more. And notice how it's highlighted. I'm going to hit Control D at the same time, and it fills it down for me. That's the beauty of Excel. And notice I need a couple more to get to 40. So I'm just going to go Control D, and I got 40. That's what makes Excel so nice. Okay, so that's how we do the year. Now the simple interest, let's tackle that column next. So the simple interest, if we remember, we kind of developed the formula for it. Let me see this one right here, the 5,000 plus 250T. So we're going to use that formula the first time, then I'll show you another way to do it. Either way works. You know, however your mind thinks is best, which way is best is fine with me. So, of course, for year 0, there's no simple total amount is $5,000. You know, that was our initial amount. So I'm just going to hit equals that cell right there, the principal. Okay? And that's it. And I'm going to do simple interest first, and we'll come back to doing compound interest next. Okay? So, and again, equals, so the cell below that, year 1. Now, it's looking at this formula here, it's 5,000. Right there. 5,000 plus the 250T. But the thing is, though, we're not going to write the 5,000 in. We got to click on the cells to get that. So that's what we got to remember. So it's really my old amount. You know, it's my starting amount. Is that 5,000? All right. So my starting amount, if I go over here and click, was this principal right here. Plus, again, we're going to use that formula. in the 250, how did we get to 250? Well, it was the 5,000 times a 0.05, but I'm going to click on these boxes. 5,000, shift 8 is times, click on 0.05, and then the T was the years, and click times the year, which is this one right there. I'm going to hit enter, and that gives me my 5250. I'm going to do that again. I'm going to hit equals. So again, we're using this formula, and there's another way to do it. I'll show you another way. Whichever way you think's easier works for me. But we're basing it on this formula right here. Whoops. Where it's the 5,000 plus 252. So this equals the 5,000, which is that number right there, plus, remember the 250 came from multiplying the principal and the rate together, so 5,000 shift 8 times the interest rate, and then times the year, which in this case is 2. And that should give me the 5,500. Now, notice it went up by 250 again. So I programmed this in twice. I should be good to do a control down, and I'm going to do it, but it's going to give me the wrong answer. I'm going to tell you why in a second. But before it does that, let's just look at these two values that we have. Let's look specifically up here in the menu bar here. Notice it's E3 plus E3 times E4 times B9. What it is, it's not important, but notice how similar it is to this one. All right, the only thing that changes is this last B9. Notice here it goes to B10. All right, that's the only thing that changes. So the only thing that changes, let me pull my pen out again, and let me change it to a different color so we can actually see it. So the only thing that changes, apparently I didn't get my pen out. There is that B10. So notice that. So let me go back up here in you probably can't see what I'm doing. I'm changing the mode to draw. So notice as I click on the 5250 cell, it's B9. Notice this E3 plus E3 times E4 is the same. Same there. Everything's the same but that B10. So when I go ahead and control down, so I'm just going to click on the 5500. I'm going to drag down a couple cells and hit Control D. Again, this is going to be wrong, and I'm going to tell you why. Clearly that's wrong. Clearly. But look what happens. You can tell in the menu bar, notice the B9 up there, the B10 up there is the only thing that changed. Look at this. They all changed. Now, yeah, the one we wanted to change changed, but so did these right in here. So did those right in there. Those changed as well. We did not want those to change. Let me just circle the ones that changed that we didn't want to change. So these here changed, and we didn't want those to change. So if I click on it, let me click on the 5250. Notice when I go to 5500, they don't change, but now when I go there, they do change. All right. Well, when you control down, the computer thinks that everything needs to change. It should go down the cell, but that's not the case with how we programmed it. So to fix that, this is what we got to do. All right. To fix that, this is what we got to do. Let me go ahead and erase these drawings. And I'm going to show you something. Since the only thing we want to change is the B9, what we need to do is we need to put a $ where that E3 is. Let me pull up my whiteboard here. So what we need to do, where that E3 is, we need to put a $ there and a $ there. That tells it Excel that that value stays the same. It doesn't change. All right, so let me go ahead and do that. I'm going to insert a $ there and a $ there, $ there, $ there, $sign there, $sign there. The only ones that doesn't have $sign is that B9, which we want to change. So I can hit enter. Well, we still get the same answer, but let me do it for this one. And then watch what happens when I do a Control D. Now watch what happens. It should go up by 250 each time. Notice it's going up by 250 each time. And notice as I click on the cell, the only thing changes is this last entry we put in, the B11, B12, B13. Yeah, that's how you do it. Since we wanted these values, since it's simple interest, you know, if I go back to my whiteboard, let me just pull that up. Since it's simple interest and it's getting written on, but that value is always the same. And how we calculated that value was always the same. All right, that's why we had to use the dollar symbols there. Now there's another way we can do it, which I'll show you. But let me just go ahead and fill this down now. We go down to 40. So you can see after 40 years, the total amount in there is $15,000. All right. So it'll take a little bit of time to use Excel, but it's not impossible to use it. You know, another thing if you want to do, you want to say, well, you know what, I'm going to go down here and add a couple decimals because we're talking about money, right? So I'm just going to increase decimal. There we go. Let me just click on this one, increase decimal here. I don't know why I bumped up 3, and then I can just control down all of these. I probably should have done this first. So if I do a Control D, notice all the decimals are there now. All right, and if I wanted to, we can just do this, I think. If I just go ahead and put a dollar sign in front of those, notice there's a dollar sign in front of those now. All right, so those are different ways you can format using Excel. In fact, let me just highlight that. You know, you see how the space between the dollar sign and the dollar symbol and the number, you know, if we wanted to get a little bit more specific, we could probably go into this currency. Up and see what happens and put the dollar sign right beside it. Either way, you know, it doesn't matter to me. We didn't have any decimals in the simple interest, but we will in the compound interest. All right, so that's how we program that. And you might be thinking, well, Tom, and remember this is a video, so you can always stop and rewind and watch it again. All we're doing is adding 250 to the last cell. Can we program it to do that? And the answer is yes. All right, so I'm going to wipe out what I just did, and I'm going to show you a different way to program it. All right, because really, all of these are going up by 250. That's what simple interest is. All right, so let me show you how to do that one. So let me just wipe all this out. I'm going to hit delete, so it's going to wipe them all out. Let's just go ahead. Of course, this is just 5,000 here. Okay, so this one is just my old cell, which is this C8. So I'm going to click on C8 plus your interest, which was that times that. This may be easier, I don't know. Okay, 5250. Okay, so I'm going to click equals. It's my old cell, the 5250, plus the interest that it made, which is that times that. There's my 5500. All right. Seems like this might be a little bit easier. I don't know. Now I'm going to do a Control D, but remember which one of these values are the same and which one changes. Now let me just do another row or another cell for you. So it's equals. It's my old cell. So my old cell changes because it's always the one before it. But plus this times that, the 5,000 times the 0.05, that always stays the same. So that's what I want to put the dollar symbols around. So if I go back to this first one, I start adding dollar symbols there. So dollar, dollar. So after, before the E and before the 3 in this case, dollar, dollar. And let me just do one more, and then I'll just do a Control D. dollar, 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 dollar. And then, so that 5,500 was the last one I changed. Let me just go ahead and do Control D here and see what happens. And notice I get the $15,000. All right, so those are two different ways you can program this Excel to come up with the same result. The first way we kind of looked at the linear formula for it and did it that way. And the second way we said, well, it just goes up by 250 every time. And that's basically what we did. Either way works. Okay, let's do the compound interest. Of course, the compound interest after year one is just that $5,000. And I can show you a couple of different ways for this one. But remember, this goes up by what, 5%? Each time our rate was 5%. So probably the easiest way to do this, and I'll just start out with what I think the easiest way to do it, again, equals, it's my old amount. So I'm going to click on that 5,000 cell times parenthesis 1 plus the rate. And click on that rate. Equals. There's my 5250. So again, it's going to go up by 5%, so equals my old amount, that's 5250. Notice instead of clicking on the 5,000 cell, I'm clicking on the 5250 cell, times Shift A, parenthesis 1 plus my rate. And I can hit equals, and notice there's my $5,512.50, which I think if I pull this back up is what we said it was. Let me get over the compound. Yep, right there it is. Okay, so that's what we said it was. And notice, you know what, we might as well start this right now. Let's get the right number of decimals. There's 2 decimals. Let's just go to currency and put our dollar bill in front. So there we go. Now, which one of these in the formula stays the same and which one changes? Well, this D8, remember, it's my old amount. So that's what I clicked on here. Let's just do one more cell. Equals my old amount. That changes because it's always a cell before it. Times parenthesis 1 plus, oops, my rate. The rate always stays the same. So that's what I'm going to need to put the dollar symbols around. And if I hit equals, there's that $5,788 and notice 0.125. So we need to go ahead and format that cell as well. So let me just go to one less decimal, and let me just go ahead and put the dollar symbol up there. And what we can do is let me just put a dollar symbol there in front of the E and in front of the 4 and hit enter. And I can go backwards and do it for this one as well. So when I fill down, let me just do that second cell. You know, you get an idea of what you want to stay. You put these in, you know, stay the same. You put them in, you know, initially the dollar symbols. You don't go back and do it, but you always can. If you're like me, you're like, oh, this ain't right. And it's important you be able to look at it and say, this ain't right. And you go back and remember, oh, this cell should stay the same. That's probably going to be the mistake you make. If you make one is, you know, that cell needs to stay the same, so you need to put the dollar symbols in there. Okay, let me go ahead and fill down and see. Again, these should increase by 5%. You know, how much more is that going to be after 40 years? That's the big question, this compound interest. You know, how much more is that? Okay, so Control D. And it looks like it is $35,194 or $35,199.94 compared to $15,000. So it's $20,000 more. That's a pretty significant amount to me. Very significant amount. We can check that answer just out of curiosity. Let me pull this back up. Let me erase. So after T is, what do we do, 40 years? So after T is 40, 5,000 times 1.05 to the 40. Let me pull my calculator up. Turn it on. This calculator is hard to turn on. It doesn't like waking up. Let me just do this. Always good to check to make sure. So actually, let me show you something else. Since see that's the last expression I got on my calculator. Let me show you this trick. Second, enter, and it types the last thing we just did. I want that exponent to be 40. And right there it is, $35,199.94. So notice if I pull my Excel sheet back up, that's exactly what we got in that Excel. So that is in that cell with Excel. That is exactly what we thought would be. So you can see a big difference, you know. So again, the simple interest is just linear growth. It goes up by 250 each time. With the compound interest, it goes up by 5% each time. So notice this last cell, you know, these last cells, if I just do a quick calculation here, let me just do it off the side. How much did that go up by? Let's go that equals that minus that. That last time it went up by $1,676. That's a lot more than $250, isn't it? So you can see over time where this exponential growth is going to be a lot better than this simple interest or linear growth. So the compound interest is going to be a lot better than the simple interest. Now, check this out. If we did this right, and this is how I want you to do the labs, everything is anchored around that principal and that interest rate. So say, well, what if we got a sweet deal and we got 10%? Let me change that to 10%. And once I change this, all these numbers on the chart should change. And you can see they all did. They all changed. So now at 10%, you know, that's $25,000 for simple interest and $226,000 for compound interest. It's quite a bit difference. You know, suppose I had $30,000 instead. And you can see all these numbers change. So that's what I mean by anchor. So for this works for any scenario, all we got to do is change the principal and the interest rate, and our formulas are already built in to go. All right. Whoa, what's going on here? It's called a very big number. If I make this a little bit bigger, it's in the millions, which is nice. Okay, so let's go back to the original amount, 5,000 and 5%, I think it was. Yeah, 5%, 0.05. One last thing I want to show you is how to graph this. Okay, to graph it, it's very simple. This Excel, I'll tell you what, it makes it easy for you. I'm just going to highlight, including the column headers of year, total amount earned simple interest, and total amount compound interest. I'm going to highlight everything. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go to Insert. So I'm going to hit the Insert tab on the top. And I want to insert this line graph right here. Okay, so I'm going to click on that one. And it says which graph. I just want a 2D line. And then I'm going to click on it. And notice there's my chart. I'm going to make it bigger so we can actually see it. Okay, so there's my chart right there. Notice that here's the years on the bottom, which is what we want. Here's the dollar amount here, which is good. And notice the brown already has a legend because I put the title in it. But the total amount earned simple interest is the brown. So you can see it's linear. It's just a line. And you can see the total amount compound interest. You can see the curve, the exponential growth here. And that's the key. If you ever get it on this dip, on this growth, that's where you want to be. But you only get there after time. All right, so that's why it's important to start investing as soon as you can. You know, I can click on here and add a chart title. I just clicked on the words chart title. And then I think I can edit that as well. Yep. I'm going to put simple interest versus compound interest. And I'm going to put in another line, $5,000 let me do that other line. $5,000 at 5%. That's what it was. Yep. We got our chart. Pretty easy. Pretty easy. Another thing you can do, if you click on this, oh, this isn't centered, isn't it? So let me just center this a little bit more. That looks a bit better. If I click on this plus here, let's just add an axis title. So I'm going to click on that, and notice that this comes up. So that is just, if I click on that on the left and edit that, this is just in dollars. And then here is years. Makes it a little bit nicer. And again, let me get my marker out, but if you can, this idea of linear versus exponential growth, you see it perfectly here. You know, linear, it just extends, you know, at the same rate, but when this exponential, it just keeps on getting up, you know, eventually gets really vertical. And the key is, if you can get on this part of the growth, you're in good shape. But that part takes many years to get there. All right, that's the key. So you want to start investing as soon as you can. As soon as you can. Let me just go ahead and erase those drawings. Let me show you one more thing, and then I'll let you go. So I think part of the directions on this, I told you to print it on one page. Actually, a couple more things. I think I just told a little bit of fib. So if I go ahead and print, I'm not going to print it out, but if I go down and select print, and I go down here to scaling, you know, you can see that this right over here, the chart's kind of going off on the page. But if I go down to scaling, and if I do fit on one page, notice it fits it on one page, which I asked you to do. So remember that. And the other thing I asked you to do is to show your formulas. So to show your formulas, all you do is you go over the Formulas tab here. I think I asked you to send this in as well. If you go over the Formulas tab here, and then you go over to, I don't think I can get it yet, go over the Formula tab. There it goes. Go over to Show Formulas. These cells here aren't going to have numbers in it. Watch what happens to them. Bam, they have the formulas that we used. All right, so I can go ahead and check out your formulas as well. And then to get the numbers back, you just click on that same thing again, Show Formulas. So click on it, it'll show the formulas. Click on it again, it'll come back to the numbers that we want. So just to recap what we did, we showed an example of simple interest versus compound interest for 40 years. And I want you to learn two things. I want you to learn Excel, which I'm going to talk about, but I want you to realize what a difference it makes when you're compounding money versus, you know, versus earning it simple interest over time. And we saw a big difference over time, especially when the rates change. And another cool thing about this, check this out. I make this 10% to 0.10. Not only do all the numbers change, but I think the graph changes as well. Yeah, you see how the graph changed there? It becomes even a bigger difference, all right? So I want you to realize the big difference between compounding your money or earning simple interest, but I also want us to get used to Excel. And for each one of these, there's a couple of different ways we can type in each of the formulas for simple interest, compound interest. It doesn't matter to me which way you do it. Only thing I ask is to make sure you have it laid out nice and organized so I can follow it, and it's anchored. You see how if I change one of these, everything changes, even the graphs. That's what I mean, it's anchored. It's anchored around these two things. So if I change any one of these two or both of them, everything changes. Make sure it's anchored. I showed you how to increase decimals to 2. I showed you how to put the dollar symbol there. I showed you how to print on one page. I'll send out the link for Excel for you. And that's it for this video. I'm going to put another video out there on Excel doing amortization table. But I think I did an example of Excel over in chapter 2, I think it was, unit 2, or unit 3, chapter 2. So we have a couple examples out there. I'm going to do another one, and feel free if you have any questions or anything, you know, please let me know. I know I'm not an expert on Excel, but I know enough to be dangerous on Excel. Thank you.